And the theory goes that Uncle George Soros and his Open Society Foundations, they are trying to create the mixed race world without borders, without nations, blah, blah, right? And they want to do it in one generation. Whereas you have others in the left-wing scene, they want to do it slowly. So they are only debating how quickly to do it, in one generation or in 10 generations, right? Mixing everybody together, creating that brown homogenized human mutt race, a global race, right? One human race, right? And the thing is, it's not going to work anyway. First of all, humanity has existed according to theory of evolution for millions of years, or hominids have existed for millions of years. We have never been one group or one race. Even Homo erectus and Homo ergaster, Homo neanderthal, and Homo habilis were already separated in different groups and ethnies and behaviors, spread across vast geographic distances, right? Occupying different habitats. Some of them would be farming, some of them would be more into hunting, others would just be gathering, right? Others were scavengers. And so the behavioral, by the way, genetics is driven mostly by behavior. Studies looking at dog races, and I don't mean a sports event. Let me turn off the music. So I'm not talking about dog. I'm talking about races of dogs. It turns out when you look into dogs, when exactly do dogs begin to evolve? When do they start changing genetically? And it's when they start behaving differently. If you have two different groups of dogs that are genetically still the same, but they go different ways, and one group starts adopting different behaviors, for example, to survive in a new environment, they start having genetic changes because of their different choices. So all genetics is driven by behavior. We never talk about it. We pretend as though people somehow magically, for no reason whatsoever, evolve and then they behave differently. No, they first begin to behave differently and then they change the genetics. It's basically, what is genetics then? It is hard-coded behavior. Behavior becomes hard-coded, and as your behavior changes, the hard-coded behavior changes a little bit. It evolves, right? So all genetics is driven by behavior. In other words, culture, your culture is vastly more important than just your DNA, right? Culture drives the direction of an entire group of people, right? And so the thing here is, we have not become one homogenized group of people ever in human history. It's never happened before. So it's not going to happen in the next 10 generations if you want to do it slowly, like merge everybody, mix everybody slowly. It's not going to happen. Now you want to do it in one generation, and the reason why Soros would want to do it in one generation, say the next 20 years or so, be done with it, the Kalergi plan, is to avoid backlash. He does not want us to be prepared to push back against what he's doing to us, or what they've been doing to us for almost 100 years now, or preparing to do to us. And so there is no point. I think if you rush it the way Soros plans to do it, for example, Britain is going to absorb another 5 million immigrants in the next 7 years or so, after they've already imported 5 million in the past 5 years or so, from Bangladesh and Pakistan, like, and these quality nations like Nigeria and so on, Ethiopia. You know, they must be truly desperate to genocide their own people as quickly as possible. And they want to do so preventing a sort of white revolt, a white backlash, a white nationalist. So what they do is they lead the controlled opposition movements. They start their own nationalistic movements, like the active clubs, for example, are controlled opposition. You know, the pet shop boys, no, what are they called? The Fed boys, the guys who dress up like as feds in the USA, also controlled opposition. They do that to capture any right-wing resentment among white men, and then channel it, basically neuter it, and then channel it toward their own interests again, right? And yet I think that's not going to work anyway, because there's people like me, and we've already seen through all the bullshit. We've seen through the whole program, right? We are already devising plans of what to do. I've spoken at length many, many times about how to defend our farms and our bridges and our towns and so on. I spoke about we should leave the big cities and move rurally, closer to nature, a bit more autarkic, off the grid. I spoke about possibly colonizing the subarctic, right? Uh, Especially if the temperatures are rising. If they say that's true, if that's really happening, we should definitely go and colonize the subarctic regions of northern Canada, northern Sweden, northern Scandinavia, right, and northern Russia and so on, northern Finland, because that's about 5 times the size of Europe, and it's almost uninhabited, right? They don't have big cities there yet. Um, and I spoke about, what if we could start 1,000 small little ethno states like Orania in South Africa. I must have spoken about just turning Europe into a Holy Roman Empire with a new warrior caste led by an aristocracy that is also led by a priestly class, right, where the priests are really in charge. Um, and there are just so many opportunities and options still available to us. The idea that you can create a global open society and then it would just stay that way is nonsense. Even if you would succeed at mixing all the races together, people will then still go their own way again. You can't keep it that way, and that's the point. You can't keep it that way. It will not stay that way, and that's why I wrote about this in my book, Revival of the West: Securing a Future for European People. I published it in 2017, where I spent 3 chapters at the beginning of the book deconstructing the whole notion of the global open society, which is an idea of George Soros, who based it on work by Karl Popper, The Open Society and Its Enemies, who based that on a concept by the Jewish philosopher Henry Bergson, who was living in Paris in 1910 or so. Henry Bergson was influenced by the rapid industrialization of Europe in Paris in the early 20th century. And he believed that would continue forever. And obviously, right now, living over 100 years later, I can tell you the industrial age is all but coming to an end, right? In the sense that we are entering, in Europe especially, the post-technological era, where the newest innovations, think of the size of innovations: planes, cars, trains, and then radio, TV, cell phones, right? And then AI, which is just an app. Okay, what comes next is nothing. There's just nothing more to do. After AI, the AI bubble bursts, we are living in the post-technological era, which means there may still be electricity for a while, but there won't be any more new big inventions. Like the idea that we can have teleportation or Stargate portals or so, or big ass spaceships that fly us to other galaxies. I think that is really the world of escapist fiction. Because after the colonial age, the European peoples, after they grabbed all the land they could and did whatever they wanted, with the British Empire especially, after that, there was nothing more to explore, and people began looking up to the sky and imagining, what if there would be another world there, right? What if we could escape to Mars, or what if we go to Saturn? And then they start fantasizing. That's when the whole science fiction thing comes. Science fiction, the Western science fiction tradition, is really a post-colonial afterthought. It is born of a desire to explore more worlds after we already discovered this one, which betrays something. There's a sense of deep dissatisfaction among white people. See, nobody gets angry when I talk about the flaws in white people. We are deeply dissatisfied with ourselves and our lives, meaning we always want more, and when there is no more, we begin to fantasize and fictionalize, right? And that leads us into the world of drug abuse and alcoholism and so on. And it just ends there. And so what we need is a new beginning. Every dwindling end has a vigorous new beginning. And we are right there. We are right there at that beginning, where we are going to start rebuilding Europe, basically.